Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mark Skidmore, with Scott Loveridge stepping down as the director of the NCRCRD. I'm taking on the role, and so this is my first webinar or hosting of the welcome. I'm looking forward to it. So today we have Rob Surin, who's here at Michigan State University, and he's going to be giving a presentation. The title of the presentation is Facilitating Rural Development in the Greater Great Lakes Region, Development of a Regional Collaborative to Support Sustainable Hops Production. And I think you have everything that you need, Rob, to start. Dr. Surin is with Michigan State University Extension. He's a community food systems educator, and he provides statewide leadership for hops research, education, and outreach. So welcome, everyone. Rob, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. How does it sound?
That sounds good for me. How about for all of you? Also, I will note here that you can chat. I see Beth has indicated that it sounds good on her end. So welcome. Okay, it looks like we're in good shape. So I will step out of the way. I may intervene if there's a chat or a question that comes in through the chat and point Rob to it. Otherwise, Rob, you can take off. And at the end, I will slide the evaluation over, and all of you can complete that before you take off. That would be great. Okay, so thank you. I'll mute now, and Rob, you can take over.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. We facilitating rural development in the Greater Great Lakes region, development of a regional collaborative to support sustainable hops production. We tried to throw more words in there, but it wouldn't fit on the slide, so it's a unwieldy title. I apologize for. So welcome, everyone. Here's a brief outline, just a little bit about the situation, hops production in the U.S. and the craft beer industry, some of the challenges and needs of growers outside of the Pacific Northwest, the formation of our Great Lakes Hop Working Group, and then we'll run down through the NCRCRD grant, some of the objectives, funding, education and outreach as a result of this, some of the outcomes, and then resources. So, and this is already outdated. Over the last 125 years, you can see down here, late 1800s, there was about 2,000 breweries in the United States, and dropped down during Prohibition, and then actually in the early 90s it dropped way back down again. In I think the early 90s there was only 2 craft breweries in Michigan. Now this number is actually over 4,000. So things have taken off. New breweries opening in the U.S. every 16 hours currently. 2014 data from the Brewers Association, an increase in overall beer production, fairly small actually. Craft though is up almost 18%. Imported beer is up, and then exportation of craft beer is also up. It's a huge market, as you can see, and growing rapidly. Currently, craft beer is about 11% market share in the U.S. So there's 2 distinct markets for hops. There's the alpha or bitter market, and beer hops are used in a couple ways in beer. One is for bittering, and the other is for aroma. And the chart on the bottom right here shows that aroma acres over the last 7 or 8 years have really increased, and that's directly correlated with the increase in craft beer. They use quite a bit more aroma hops than some of your mega breweries. According to the chief economist at the Brewers Association, they predict that by 2020 craft beer will be up to 20% market share. And in order to supply the hops necessary for that, we'll have to have about 12,000 new acres of hops in the U.S., I think last year there was maybe around 35,000 acres, somewhere in there. Almost $200 million in acreage investment, and not to mention all of the infrastructure, that the harvest, the post-harvest, the drying, the pelletizing. And growers have been expanding in the Pacific Northwest and across the country as well. So in 2013, in Michigan, there were about 6.3 million barrels of beer sold, and only 7% of that, 7.2%, was craft beer. Nearly 5% was Michigan craft beer. So the market, there's definitely potential for that to grow in the marketplace. And this one might be a little hard to see, so I'll try to explain it here. In the left, you can see the number of Michigan craft breweries, and this is the green bars. So we're up over 200 now. And the blue bars represent the acres of hops in commercial production. So right around 2008 was maybe a half acre of hops in commercial production. And now we're over, probably over 600 acres. And based on surveys of growers, we could get up to 1,600 acres by 2020. We had, in I think the 1865 census, there was 400 and some acres of hops in Michigan. So we're at our all-time high currently. And Michigan is currently the fourth ranked state in hops after Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Michigan there. So just a summary there. We have a thriving craft brewing sector across the U.S., interest in local sourcing of raw materials. The Brewers Association is really interested in increasing the geographic diversity of hops production to ensure market security. Lots of interest from growers in diversifying into hops, but despite this enthusiasm, there are several challenges across our region into getting into hops. So quite a few of those are the environment. Obviously, weather plays a major issue in all of agriculture. Temperature, your soils, hops like well-drained sandy soils, and then obviously the production practices are going to be key. And folks out in the Pacific Northwest have been doing this for 4, 5, 6 generations even, and doing it very well. Their climate is nearly completely different than ours. It's a high desert. They only get 8 inches of precipitation a year. So we have much more humid east of the Rockies here. This is a big storm that came in at Traverse City, Michigan, August 2nd. So we have to deal with extreme weather events like this that took out some trellises. The other thing that it's going to be increasingly important for growers is to get that cost of production down on a per pound basis. And the way to do that is by increasing your yields. And so when growers started out, brewers were paying quite a bit of money for hops, and growers maybe 500 pounds an acre, maybe up to 1,000. Now we're starting to see increases, and you can see the obviously it kind of makes sense. There's a correlation between the more pounds you have per acre and the reduced amount per pound and cost of production. So in terms of challenges and needs, brewers are looking at there's an increasing demand. There's over 200 breweries in Michigan. There's more all across the Midwest, the Great Lakes states. They're interested in sourcing local, high-quality raw materials. They always emphasize high quality, but also in the quantities where they can contract with a local supplier and know that they'll have a secure source of hops into the future. Growers are interested in regionally specific best management practices, and so working on cultivar trials to determine what varieties do best, and then syncing those with what the brewers want. Post-harvest quality control is very important. So from an educator standpoint, we were concerned that everyone was duplicating their efforts and their resources all across the East, trying to help growers in this new industry. And we also thought it would be useful to have a collective repository of information. So we established the Great Lakes Hop Working Group. There's already in existence 2 other Great Lakes working groups, one with fruit and one with vegetables, so we thought it would be a nice model. And our objectives were to establish that group to serve as a professional network, to host and organize conference that we could, the results of which would be development of resources for growers, development of a system of coordinated outreach for growers through this collective repository, and then per the NCRCRD grant guidelines, we also thought it would be excellent if we could apply for larger federal funding to support our efforts further. So here's a map of the work group members. If I miss some, I'm sorry. More and more folks are getting involved. So these were the deliverables at the beginning of the grant, and I mentioned some of them: to establish this group, to host this conference, and coordinated outreach, and our timeline here, and have monthly conference calls or webinars during the growing season to share information, IPM, integrated pest management updates, what diseases we were seeing, what control methods were available, that sort of thing. And then also, at the same time, begin a literature review and developing an outline for a major grant, impacts and reporting the impacts to NCRCRD, and then develop one or more proposals for funding. And we thought the potential impacts were going to be increased availability of research-based information and programs, increased communication between universities and industry professionals, increased understanding of brewers' needs, increased stability, eventually, of the supply, quality, and market security of hops, on-farm and university research trials to develop best management practices that would result in rural and regional economic development. So our initial meeting with NCRCRD funding occurred in Grand Rapids, Michigan, during the Great Lakes Expo. Our group represented 11 states and 2 Canadian provinces. This is just a brief. It was a one-day meeting. Our agenda was to look at the U.S. and regional hop situation. We had Ann George, the director of Hop Growers of America, there, and so we gave regional updates in addition to getting a great update from her, and then really dividing into areas of expertise and determining what the needs were, developing a plan for proceeding, and then determining the focus of a larger multi-state grant or grants. So these were the priorities that came out of this initial meeting. Sourcing priority area for greenhouse and propagation would be sourcing clean plant material, virus testing, rapid detection, grower education, virus indexing and certification. On the pest disease management front, downy mildew is the big one that can take out an industry really quickly. Integrated pest management education, cultural practices for downy mildew control, herbicide protocol and registration needs, that sort of thing. Post-harvest quality control, our priority areas were processing, food safety, pesticide residues and MRLs, and then drying and packaging and pelletizing. Horticulture, we were looking at regional specific variety development, training date, and associated practices. For crop management, we were looking at nutrient management, nutrient testing protocol and interpretation, water use efficiency, that sort of thing. And then on the business marketing front, looking at market accessibility, education, facilitation of a cooperative grower efforts. Sorry, my dog is scratching his. Hold on one sec. And then we also had one more that I don't see on here, and that would be regulatory and internal needs, IR4 registrations, plant material regulation. So those were the priorities that we developed, and we proceeded with grant funding. The bottom one we submitted in 2015. It was declined, but this is all a pre-breeding program and virus detection. I just talked to Angela yesterday, and they'll be resubmitting that grant. The one at the top there, which I probably should have started with, is a USDA NEFA SCRI grant, enhancing the production capacity of the hop industry in re-emerging growing regions. We're excited about that. The second one there is through the North Central IPM with USDA NEFA funding, and it's $20,000 that we will apply for on an annual basis to reconvene this group and share information. The third one was led by the Nebraska Department of Agriculture. It's a multi-state USDA specialty crop block grant. So these were all a result of the NCRCRD funding. On the education and outreach front, several conferences are held each year all around the region. We share information on speakers. We share information. In fact, we've had folks from each of these universities come to ours, and we've attended theirs, both as speakers and conference guests. Really keeping communication lines open is really, really useful. And I believe one of the major outcomes of this is just the relationships that we've been able to build. One huge outcome is this field guide for integrated pest management in hops. For the first time, it includes information for growing regions outside of the Pacific Northwest. And I think 15 or 16 members of the Great Lakes Hop Working Group contributed to that, either as authors or editors. So the outcome, I believe the NCRCRD seed funding laid the groundwork for the completion of all of our objectives. The objective number 3, which is developing a system of coordinated outreach through a collaborative information repository. We're currently working with USA Hops. We think they've agreed to be that repository of information for the entire U.S. They've created a small growers council as well. So as we move further along, we will provide updates to all of our growers and university partners as to how that is proceeding. So I'd like to thank the NCRCRD for their funding, especially Rosa for all of her hard work, and Erin Lazat, a colleague of mine, for helping me organize the Hop Working Group. I'd also like to point out Omafra in Canada. Evan and Melanie have hosted our monthly phone calls, which has been really useful from an educator standpoint to hear what's happening around other areas of the country, and then take that information and apply it to our local condition. If folks are interested, March 16th and 17th in Traverse City, Michigan, we'll be holding our second annual Great Lakes Hop and Barley Conference. That is a really outstanding event. There was close to 400 people there last year. There were also conferences happening in Ohio State, down in Purdue, Vermont, all across the region. So here's a list of resources and my contact information, and I'm happy to take any questions that anyone has, if you have any, and thanks for your time.
If you'd like to add a question, you can just put it right in the chat. I see Eric is typing now. See it, thank you. I have one question, Rob. It's a two-tier question. I just saw the tremendous growth in microbreweries and hops, and it doesn't look like it's expected to slow. Do you have a sense for how much longer that's going to grow at that pace, or will it taper off?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I'm actually heading out to, I think heading down to the Michigan Brewers Guild annual meeting right after this talk down in Kalamazoo, and then on Saturday out to the National Hop Convention out in California, and they give an annual update and kind of a market projections at that. So I'm really excited to see what they think the future holds. At least in the next 4 or 5 years, they expect it to keep taking off. They expect 20% market share by 2020. The interesting thing is that, if you go to a grocery store, there's only so much shelf space right now at grocery stores. So as more and more you know, these really excellent smaller scale brewers are expanding and new ones are opening all the time. I think it's going to be an increasingly competitive marketplace, especially at retail. The other thing you have is huge growth in the hard cider industry, which could be competing with some of this as well. Um, so yeah, we'll see. It's really difficult to tell right now. But if folks are interested in that sort of information, the Brewers Association has a really great website with a lot of that with a lot of those data. Great. Looking forward to seeing folks from Mighty Axe out there. Eric.
Well, thank you very much for, looks like we have another question coming from Eric, or maybe a comment. We'll wait for that. Okay, it looks like we're okay. Well, if there aren't any other questions, just again want to thank you, Rob, for presenting this great information, and really appreciate your time.
Hey, thanks a lot, Mark. Appreciate it. Thanks, Rosa.
All right, we're going to sign off then. Bye-bye, everyone.